So, right beneath the everyday internet you and I use, there's a hidden, completely unregulated world, the dark web. And for a time, its undisputed crown jewel was the Silk Road. We're talking about an online black market, often dubbed the Amazon of drugs, that processed over $1.2 billion in illegal sales. It's massive, right? But the most captivating mystery of this illicit empire isn't actually the sheer scale of the operation. No, it's the seemingly sweet kid who built it. Okay, let's dive into this because the contrast here is absolutely staggering. On one hand, we have Ross Ulbricht. He was an Eagle Scout, grew up in a loving Texas family, studied physics at university, and was almost universally described by everyone who knew him as a deeply sweet, caring guy. But fast forward just a few years and look at his eventual reputation, the criminal mastermind behind history's largest online drug empire, and a man accused of financing multiple assassinations. So how on earth do we bridge the gap between those two completely different identities? Well, it all starts with a very specific worldview. You see, Ross was a staunch libertarian who believed incredibly intensely in personal freedom. Whenever people challenged his beliefs on safety, he actually had a pretty ready counterargument. He'd ask, should we outlaw Big Macs too? Or cars? They kill millions every year. He firmly, truly believed that the government simply has absolutely no right to dictate what adults choose to put into their own bodies. Now, when we look at exactly why Ross built the Silk Road, we have to understand this ultimate vision of his. Because to Ross, this wasn't originally a business designed just to make a quick buck. Not at all. This was a philosophical crusade. He wanted to create a purely free market, functioning completely outside of government control and systemic authority. He really wanted to create a platform that would empower individuals and, in his eyes anyway, ultimately free people. But obviously, to build a system like that, he needed the right tech. The very first technological puzzle piece Ross discovered was the Tor browser. And ironically enough, Tor was originally developed by the US Navy to conceal a user's real IP address and identity for secure military communications. Ross realized that by routing a marketplace through Tor, users could access his site on the dark web entirely anonymously. The government literally wouldn't be able to see who they were or what they were doing. Problem solved, right? Well, there was still one massive hurdle. How do you actually pay for things without leaving a paper trail? Think about it. Credit cards leave a log of every single transaction, completely defeating the purpose of an anonymous market. But in the summer of 2010, Ross found his answer. He discovered Bitcoin. This was a digital currency that enabled completely untraceable financial transactions. And this was the exact breakthrough he needed. Combining Tor for anonymous browsing and Bitcoin for anonymous payments meant his wild dream of a totally unregulated free market could actually, finally, become a reality. But building this reality, it was incredibly scrappy, totally DIY, and honestly pretty lonely work. Ross coded the site entirely by himself from his bedroom, keeping himself awake while occasionally binge-watching Breaking Bad. When it was finally time to launch in early 2011, he ran into a funny problem. He realized he needed inventory. So what did he do? He rented a secluded building, grew his own magic mushrooms using a dummy's guide, and literally shipped out the very first Silk Road orders himself, using padded envelopes and a label maker he just borrowed from his day job at Good Wagon Books. But man, what started with a few homegrown mushrooms exploded into a massive empire almost overnight. After a Gawker article published an expose on the underground website, traffic just absolutely skyrocketed. The Silk Road rapidly grew to nearly 1 million users, processing tens of millions of dollars in commissions directly for Ross. Suddenly, he was a 20-something multimillionaire running the world's largest illegal enterprise, entirely from his laptop. And this brilliantly illustrates where things went off the rails. At first, it was just weed and magic mushrooms. But the inventory quickly devolved into absolute chaos. Because Ross completely refused to interfere with the market based on his strict free market ideology, the platform was soon flooded with highly dangerous, downright terrifying items. Almost overnight, users were suddenly able to anonymously purchase hacked webcams, fake passports, counterfeit cash, and even things like cyanide poison, rocket launchers, and human body parts. The dark reality of this entirely unregulated platform was that it had profound, fatal consequences in the real world. In one incredibly tragic instance, a group of kids bought an unregulated party pack of synthetic LSD from a Chinese lab right off the Silk Road. When one teenager took it, he suffered extreme panic and disorientation. Honestly believing he could fly, he ran straight off a hotel balcony, falling 30 feet to the parking lot below, and suffering horrific, fatal head injuries. It was a brutal, real-world reminder of what happens when safeguards are completely removed. As the stakes grew higher and higher, Ross grew close to a highly active user who went by the name Variety Jones. Serving almost like a dark web business mentor, Variety Jones warned Ross about the severe legal penalties he was facing and suggested a pretty brilliant strategy. He told Ross to adopt the alias Dread Pirate Roberts. If you're a fan of The Princess Bride, you'll know that's a title passed down over the years from person to person. This would give Ross plausible deniability. If he was ever caught, he could just claim he was only one of many people to hold the title. Even with the alias, the pressure was just immense. At one point, an ex-girlfriend's friend named Erica made a vengeful public Facebook post basically outing his drug website. A completely terrified Ross was forced to flee the country. He started backpacking across Southeast Asia just to lay low, and his paranoia reached a fever pitch. He was relying on random internet cafes to run this billion-dollar site, always making sure to sit in corner booths, and he even programmed a panic button on his laptop to immediately turn the screen black if anyone walked behind him. Now, while massive government agencies were all hunting him down, the biggest breakthrough actually came from a really unlikely source: IRS tax inspector Gary Alford. Alfred loved the famous 1970s Son of Sam serial killer case. In that case, a brilliant detective caught the murderer not through complex forensics, but by matching simple, physical parking tickets near the crime scenes. Alfred believed the Silk Road's creator wasn't some flawless mastermind. He fully believed he would find the digital equivalent of a parking ticket, a simple, completely overlooked human error. Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds, because Alfred's meticulous digital breadcrumb trail is just fascinating. He searched for the very first mentions of Silk Road online and found early 2011 forum posts by a user named Altoid. Months later, that same Altoid posted a job ad asking applicants to send their resumes to, get this, rossulbricht@gmail.com. Then, over on a coding forum, Ross posted a technical question using his real name, panicked, and changed the username to Frosty a minute later. Finally, Homeland Security had a record of intercepted fake IDs addressed directly to Ross. These digital parking tickets were seriously piling up. While the IRS was following those breadcrumbs, the FBI found a completely separate, crucial lead. By exploiting a tiny bug in the Silk Road's code, they traced the site's server all the way to a data center in Iceland. By infiltrating this server, agents could monitor exactly when the site's administrator logged in and out. And guess what? The IP address for those admin logins was coming directly from an internet cafe in San Francisco, literally just blocks away from where Ross Ulbricht was currently living. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is the insane movie-like twist happening behind the scenes. While everyone is hunting Ross, 2 federal agents on the Baltimore task force went entirely rogue. DEA agent Carl Force actually posed as a drug smuggler and secretly sold intel back to Ross. Meanwhile, agent Sean Bridges used a seized moderator account to steal $350,000 in Bitcoin directly from the Silk Road. You literally can't make this stuff up. Believing his own employees were stealing from him and betraying the empire, Ross felt he had to send a message. According to the chat logs eventually found on his computer, he paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to commission 5 different executions, including a hit on one of his moderators, Curtis Green. But here is the massive twist. 0 actual bodies were ever found. Those corrupt agents and online scammers, they were faking the deaths, sending Ross staged photos, and just pocketing the cash. Ross was paying for murders that were never actually happening. Ultimately, to secure a conviction, the FBI knew they couldn't just walk up and arrest Ross. They had to catch him with his laptop open and completely unencrypted so that they could secure those damning chat logs and diaries. So in October 2013, they tracked him to a San Francisco public library. Undercover agents staged a super loud, distracting lovers' quarrel right behind him. The very moment Ross turned around to look at the commotion, another agent swooped in, snatched his open laptop, and arrested him. The trap worked. All the unencrypted data was fully exposed. During the trial, his defense team argued that the Silk Road was simply a social experiment that had completely spiraled out of his control. But the jury didn't buy it, finding him guilty on all counts. And the judge issued a stunningly harsh verdict: 2 life sentences plus 40 years, with absolutely no possibility of parole. She completely rejected his philosophical defense, stating that the platform facilitated irreparable harm, fueled addiction, and that Ross was fully willing to commission murders to protect it. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative question. If a platform built with the strict ideological intent of providing ultimate freedom inevitably devolves into fatal chaos and harm, Is the creator a visionary or a villain? Ross Ulbricht set out to build a world completely free of systemic authority, but in the end, that unrestricted freedom carried an irreversible human cost. Thank you so much